Happy Friday, everyone. Friday starts the weekend, and we are here to make your weekend a profitable one through the props betting market. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Welcome to Prop It Up. Joining me, as always, my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. We are going to be breaking down every game that you will see in the NFL on Sunday. We'll be taking a look at the props. Andrew has a 5% CFL play he's going to tell us about. He has been on fire with that. I've got a college football play you do not want to miss out. But let's get into the NFL plays. And guys, real quick, hit the like button as we get into this, and also leave us a comment and tell us your favorite play for this weekend. Everyone in the comment section was all over Gabe Davis on Monday. He does get over his receiving total barely. So congratulations, guys, on that one. And then shout out to Anthony Marquez. He was the only one in the comment section. Went in on all confidence on Russell Wilson over 21.5 rushing. Russell Wilson gets to 30. Great call on that one. So leave us a comment in the comment section. Hit the like button. And let's get into it. Andrew, all I do when I give you the games that we're going to go over is I just go in order that ESPN has. And after looking at this, I surely could have moved us to a more exciting game to start us off. But let's just stick to the schedule. Steelers, right. Browns, let's go. Let's go. Surely there's going to be tons of props in this one. I promise we'll get to better games in this one. But, hey, all we got to do is cash some bets. So when you looked up this game, what have you noticed in the props market for Steelers at Browns?
Yeah, don't they call that like burying the lead? In this case, it's kind of just burying the bad game. I guess that's what we're doing here. And also, I don't want to pat myself on the back, Andy, but I'm going to. The under receptions for Gabe Davis. I literally mentioned on our show on Monday, he can be a guy that can go crazy with his yards, but still go under his receptions. So that was kind of a cool feeling to see him get 2 receptions, but, go over that receiving yard total. Let's start things off with the quarterback talk. I mean, that's the big story around the Browns. Thompson Robinson behind center for the Cleveland Browns. And looking at this guy, I mean, not much experience out there. Career 0 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Not really the greatest pass completion percentage either, but obviously he hasn't had that much experience out there in general. When I look at these type of things, you pretty much look at a simplified offense, things being really, really dumbed down. And especially when you're dealing with the pass rush that he's going to deal with this weekend, I don't really think he'll have much time to get in there and throw the ball deep downfield and make any huge plays. But Andy, I'm seeing Elijah Moore is at 27.5 receiving here. I think that we're going to see a lot of screen pass action with him. And with Elijah Moore, what he's been utilized for a lot more is just his athleticism after he's able to catch the ball, yards after catch, making plays there. And that number's been adjusted, man, just based on recent games, based on other guys getting the ball, and just based on the fact that they've been running the ball down opponent's throat a lot more. So 27.5, I thought that was a pretty good number. And it feels like every week, whenever one of us talks about the Pittsburgh Steelers, Deontay Johnson's name is getting brought up. Coming off his worst outing, caught 1 of 4 targets for 17 yards. But here's the deal. And you know this and I know this. The Packers are awful on the ground defensively. So there was no need for the Pittsburgh Steelers to throw the ball much when they could just constantly run the ball. They got buried. So I think that this is a good bounce back opportunity. I think Johnson gets going, and over 45.5 receiving is a good number because he's usually good for 1 or 2 deep passes. I think that these 2 receivers that I'm taking in this game are quite the opposite of each other. One guy I'm relying on to catch short plays and kind of do something with the ball afterwards. And one guy like Deontay Johnson, I could honestly see him getting this in 2 or 3 catches.
Love it. Great breakdown on the Steelers at the Browns. I have the Bears at the Lions. And so, I've been fading these bad pass defenses, and the Bears are one of these teams that definitely has a bad pass defense. And on paper, they have a very good rush defense. However, I just cannot ignore this David Montgomery number at 49.5. This guy is the hammer for the Lions. This is a guy that gets all the tough carries, and he's gone over in every game except the game that he got hurt in. Last week, he only had 12 carries in his first game back from the injury. Did he look slow? No, he had that huge 75-yard run, so he has his explosiveness. So I think the Detroit Lions, the game script is going to be in their favor. It's Justin Fields' first game back. The Lions defense is really good. So I just don't see a script where David Montgomery isn't getting carries. I know Jahmyr Gibbs had quite a few carries last week, but I think this number is just really low on a guy that I think is going to get 15 plus carries this week against the Bears. I'm sure Jared Goff's going to get his, and he's going to be throwing a lot. But this is a Lions team that likes running the ball. Dan Campbell likes pounding it, and working the time of possession. I think they can do that against the Bears. So I'll go with my guy David Montgomery on a number that I just think is really really low in this game. And I may be playing with fire here, but I am going to go with Justin Fields over 210 yards passing. He's back. I know he's off the thumb injury. If he's good enough to start for the Bears, he's good enough to play in your props. He did not go over in the game he got hurt in. Obviously, he didn't play the whole game, and then he didn't go over in that massacre against Kansas City. But he's gone over in the other 4 games that he started and finished. And this is a Detroit team that's number 3 in rushing yards per game allowed, but they're number 20 in passing yards per game allowed. Again, I don't think the game script is going to be in the favor of the Bears, so I think they end up having to throw. So if I'm predicting the game script, I think the Lions are going to be up, which means Fields is going to be throwing. David Montgomery is going to be running. So 210.5 against a team that is elite against the run, but not very good against the passes, where I'll be going with this one. So David Montgomery over his rushing, Justin Fields over his passing in the Bears at the Lions. So, Andrew, your CFL 5% run continues to hit, and you're going to break down the Chargers at your Packers. But you got to tell us about the CFL play last week, and then it's final game. It's the big game. So, tell us about this big game and tell us what you have up for it.
Yeah, obviously it's a small league, right? So there's only nine teams, and the playoffs aren't very long. So you got to make your money while you can. And last week I decided just one play out of the 2 conference final games, and I had a plus 10.5, and they were leading the entire game. It was the best feeling, and it was great defense from the dog there, and they got it done. And I'm now 11-2 on the year with 5% CFL plays. I'm telling you, Andy, if people knew, if we just changed one letter in this league to N and not a C, I would be getting praise from people. But nobody cares about CFL. I'm telling you guys, when you go on vacations, when you go to dinner, they're not going to ask you how you made the money. They're not going to ask you what sport it was that you bet. It's just money. And I think the CFL right now is better for some of these bigger plays with the line movement. And it's just unbelievable right now. Looking at the CFL, I do have a big play that I like, and I will give a hint. This week, it is a total play. So get involved, guys, and join me on WagerTalk. Andy, no promo code for me for it, because I feel like with 11-2 record, I feel like I deserve to be getting full price. No promo code needed. No promo code there for this one. But look, let's dive into it. And, I think this is a tale of 2 different stories here. You've got a really bad pass defense against a really bad rush defense. The Packers rank 27th in the league in rushing yards allowed per game. We've got a Chargers team that ranks 32 in passing yards allowed per game. So is it just this simple? I mean, is this the Jordan Love game after I bashed him all last week? I mean, this to me might be the week to look towards Jordan Love props. And I believe you talked about it on Monday. I think that when you look at some of the scheduling spots that he's had and some of the teams he's had to deal with, as much as it's been frustrating for a fan, this is one of those look ahead spots where Jordan Love actually might be able to sling it. They might not have to just run the ball and game manage and run these checkdowns. We might see him look downfield. With the over 1.5 passing touchdowns, it still kind of worries me, because at this point, I'm not sure how much they trust him in the red zone, Andy. And the goal line, do they want to put the ball in his hands? Obviously, he's young and they want him to grow, but I'm certainly looking at the over for passing yards for Jordan Love. I like how they're spreading the ball out again. And this Chargers team, all I keep hearing, and these reports are, the defense is getting better. They're supposed to be good. They've got all these guys. I'm not buying it with them, because it's a lot of times late in game or 1 or 2 big plays that they give up, and that's really hurt them quite a bit. When I look at Austin Eckler props here, looking at his last couple games, this is someone that's been getting fed the ball. And part of the reason I think, Andy, is that they just want to keep their defense off the field. They want to just utilize the clock a little bit more, take a little bit longer on their possessions. I'm seeing 19, 14, 15, 14, and 14. Those are Austin Eckler's attempts over his last handful of games. He has not had any shaky games whatsoever. And what does that tell me? The game script does not matter. The game script is not even an issue for this Chargers team. He's going to get his reps. He's going to get his opportunities. So I'm going to look towards the over on rushing yards for Austin Eckler. And I think I might look at some kicking props actually for this Chargers team, because believe it or not, they've kind of been struggling when it comes down to getting down there to the red zone. And I think early in the game, they're not going to take any risks, although their coach is a bonehead and it's hard to ever predict what he's going to do. But I think that at this point in the season, you think they're going to have to kind of settle things down a little bit and take points when they can get them. But this to me is one of the ones where you pull up teamrankings.com, a website I think most people should use, and you see both teams' defenses at the bottom in one position, rush defense and pass defense, and you utilize it. So I guarantee you, as a Packers fan, this will be the one where this will be the week where I bash him last week, Jordan Love, and then I'll watch him throw for like 300 yards this week, and I'm like, oh, he's back. You know, he's a good quarterback again, Andy. But I think you talked about it on Monday. I can't really look away from his passing yards, but I'm not going to take his over 1.5 touchdown passes just because they tend to go to the running backs when they're in the end zone, red zone.
Yeah, every single quarterback has gone over their passing total against the Chargers. It's amazing to think like, yeah, we don't have a crystal ball, but it's amazing to think we could have made this season really easy. Just one play every weekend in the NFL, we'd be undefeated. So go grab Andrew's CFL play. I do not have any NFL props up just yet, waiting on weather and a couple of injuries. But I will say my college football play that is up right now is a must add. It is 8-3 this season. We only do one play each week, and there's a spot that I just love. It's a team total, and that's all we've done this season. College football team totals, just one. We're number one in winning percentage and ROI this year in college football with just doing one play a week. So that's all you need sometimes is just one play. You've been doing a fantastic job in CFL with that. So grab that. Goes off on Saturday. That is at Andy Lang's profile page on WagerTalk.com. Let's cash on that college football play on Saturday before we get to NFL. I have the Raiders at the Dolphins, and there's a lot of props in this one, and I started to have like 3 or 4, and then I deleted them. Why? Because I only need one in this one. And it's Davante Adams over 68.5 receiving. Last week, I was nervous about him. Like, how many targets is he going to get? Is he sulking? What are they going to do? Andrew, Aiden O'Connell threw the ball 27 times. 13 of the targets went to Davante Adams. 27 throws and 13 targets went to the same guy, and that was against a great secondary. Miami, not nearly as good. So if he gets even remotely close to 13 targets, give me 10 targets, he's going to fly over this total. You look at some of the big receivers that have gone up against Miami. A.J. Brown had 10 catches for 134 yards. Stephon Diggs had six catches for 120 yards against Miami. I don't need to go too much in depth in this game. Give me Davante Adams over. I know it's kind of a little bit of a square play, big name guy, but this Raiders team and Aiden O'Connell looks like they're going to be throwing to Davante Adams a lot this week. So.
Andy, Giants, I gotta call myself out. I meant because there was a clip. Kelly said, "Hey, do you mind posting this on the WagerTalk Instagram?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, no problem." I know I got to get more action going on the WagerTalk at Insta. And I thought I had a pretty good show last Friday. Some good results, some good prop bets given out, and then the one clip I send out is me saying, I can't trust Davante Adams. I can't trust the guy this week. And like since the coaching firing, it's literally been the Davante Adams show again. So I felt like an absolute meme when it came to that. Like the guy's back getting his targets, and you talk about him sulking. I mean, it's literally one or the other though with him. The guy either gets like 28 yards or like 85 yards, and there's nowhere in between with him. But I did need to call myself out sometimes on the show. I think it's important to do that.
He doesn't look sulky now. He's lighting up cigars in the locker room. I mean, who would have thunk he's happier with Aiden O'Connell? But listen, you can't ignore it. So I was with you. I was nervous about him, but looking at the body language and those targets, man, I think you got to look that way. So, oh boy, Giants and Commanders. Do you have the onions, Andrew, to take an over on Tommy DeVito? Do you have the testicular fortitude to put your money on Tommy DeVito? What do you think in this game?
No, I don't. I don't actually. And if can it be his interceptions? Can it be the over
Smart
on his
play.
time on the bench? That should be a new stat. Time on the bench, over under. Time not on offense, because that's what I expect from that offense. It's going to be tough to watch. I mean, we talk about simplifying it, Andy. We talk about that all the time. Why wasn't just fading this Giants team the only play we made last week? Holy crap. I mean, whether it was receptions for some big guys on the other team, I mean, that was unbelievable here. But I think that we need to take a second. And you talked about just one prop that you want to look at when you talked about Devontae Adams. Look at the numbers that Sam Howell is putting up right now. I mention this all the time on Puck Time in the hockey show. The team that somebody plays for often dictates how much attention they get from the media. I think you'd agree with me on that, Andy, right? And
Absolutely.
this is this is a team. The guy plays in the Washington Commanders. They've had like 3 different names in the last 4 years. Okay. I'm talking about like an absolute stud for his numbers right now. I can't believe it. 312 yards, 325 yards, 397 yards, 3 straight games. And some people might say, oh, well, those have been easier opponents. Seattle, New England, Philly, I think that those have been okay opponents. And the fact of the matter is, with the Giants, the way I've grown as far as a prop better is I would used to be scared to take the over on passing yards for a quarterback against a horrible team, because I would tell myself this, Andy, well, by the second half, they're going to be up by so many points, and they're going to just have no choice but to run the ball out. Why will they have to throw the ball? Look at what happened in the first half last week. The Giants were out of the game by like 5 minutes into the game. They find themselves down 21 points, it felt like, before you could even go to get a new beer from the fridge. And that's what's happening. This Giants defense has been awful. This isn't just as much of a bet on Sam Howell as it is a fade against the New York Giants defense. Now, here's the thing. When you look at big names for Washington, everyone talks about Scary Terry and some guys down in the lineup right now. I worry about those names. I worry about the bigger names in this one, because this is where I will say I'm to that cautious approach, because especially for a team like the Commanders, this could be a game where they distribute the ball a little bit and spread out the offense. But I have to look towards Saquon unders, because I don't care if he's the only guy on the team that can do anything. I don't care if he's the only one that's going to get the attention that and deservingly so. If they're not on the field to run plays, you can't cash an over prop. And I like the under for Saquon, because he's the only one that has a high number for anything. And of course, rightfully so. So I just don't think he's going to be on there. And when you go down 14 points, you cannot run the ball. So give me Sam Howell over. This is very simple. If people can't realize how good this guy's been, putting up 300 plus the past 3 weeks, 250 yards the week before that, if he played on any other team, I think he's getting a ton more respect than he really is right now.
It's great analysis. If you're not playing, you can't accumulate stats. It's very well said.
Literally.
It is so true. Like, in what world is the game script going to be where Saquon's running out the clock? I mean, what team? I think they're going for it, Andrew. I think the Giants are going for the number 1 pick. I think they're going to roll with Tommy DeVito the rest of the way. I think the fix is in. So yeah, it's a
The fix is in.
I do, man. Why wouldn't you? What do you know what I think the Giants play the Patriots in a couple of weeks, and that literally is going to be Tankapalooza. Like, you could see everybody sitting. That could be a semi-pro football game. For all we know, if both teams are.
NFL is the only league that does that, right? Like, the NHL does a lottery. NBA is similar. Like, the NFL is the only league where it's like end of the year, we really want to lose. And if we lose, we're going to get that top pick, right? It's pretty much
Yeah,
that simple.
you can do it in the NBA. The Trailblazers did it last year for sure. So you'll see some teams kind of do it. But yeah, NFL,
But they
yeah,
didn't win,
especially when
though.
it's a
They didn't
no,
get the pick.
but it's that's true. And then in NFL, I mean, it's quarterback heavy, so it's so important to get a quarterback that it's worth it. So all right, we
Yeah.
have to talk about the Cowboys at the Panthers. And Andrew, we joked last week that Jerry Jones has made his money not by owning the Cowboys, not by business deals, but by utilizing same game parlays when the Cowboys play bad teams. He fires up the team and says, let's really put the hammer down. They did it last week. Like basically any same game parlay that you took overs on with the Cowboys would have hit. So we're going to do this here. Every time the Cowboys play a bad team, we're going to do the Jerry Jones same game parlay. And this is with the premise that the Cowboys are front runners and all they do is like running up the score against bad teams. This is where their stats come from. So here's this week's Jerry Jones get rich same game parlay here. We're going to start with Dak Prescott, 259.5. They could have pulled off the Dogs last week. Did they? No. He goes for over 400 yards. So they're playing the Panthers. So let's take Dak to throw for another big amount. Brandon Cooks, he looks healthy. He had a huge game last week. So I'm going to take Brandon Cooks to have 50-plus receiving yards on the alt line. CeeDee Lamb, listen, if Dak's going to throw for another 400, CeeDee Lamb's going to put up 10 catches and 140 yards. So we'll take CeeDee Lamb here to go over his receiving yards, and 27.5 against the Panthers. Oh, Jerry's getting in that locker room saying, how about them Cowboys? Let's hang another 40 burger on this one-win team. So this is your 11-1 Jerry Jones same game parlay. Dak over his passing, Brandon Cooks to have over 50, CeeDee Lamb to have 100 plus, and the Cowboys over 27.5. But now the key is you only do this against bad teams. They can't do it against the 49ers. Where they put up 10 points. It's only reserved for the worst teams in the NFL. So there we go. There's how you're playing the Cowboys game. So in all seriousness, I do actually have a couple of props you can play on your own. I actually do believe in that Dak Prescott 259.5. I think he is going to throw a lot. I would look at Bryce Young under 202.5. He's only had 185 against the Bears. They're 26th worst against the pass. And they only had 173 against my Colts, and my Colts are terrible. 18th worst against the pass. Dallas is second. They only allow 166 per game. So I think Bryce Young is under. And then I mentioned him last week, Andrew. I should have gone all in. I should have had much more confidence in my read on this one. Rico Dowdle, over 27.5 rushing this week. This guy is the wink backup to Tony Pollard. I think this is becoming more of a split backfield. Pollard just does not look great. I don't know if he has. I don't think he's recovered from that injury at the end of last year. He does not have the explosiveness. And last week in the blowout, Rico Dowdle, 12 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. So I think he does the same thing here. 27.5 yards. Pollard 15 carries, Dowdle 12. If Dowdle gets 10 carries, he's easily going to go over this 27.5. So I think you can look at that backup running back, the wink backup running back for the Cowboys to go over a low rushing total in this one. So that's how we're looking at Cowboys and Panthers. Andrew, you got Titans, Jaguars, AFC South matchup. You got some offenses that are struggling here a little bit. What do you think about this game props-wise?
Yeah, I just want to say I really like that play, Andy, and I think it's you talk about I love, first of all, the same game parlay. That's, I mean, he's building Jerry's world based on his parlays. There's no denying it. But look at those secondary option guys, because you're getting the lower number, right? And they're going to get utilized in blowouts and things like that. The passing yards for Dak, he's going to make himself look good early in the half, maybe go over his number. But I think the secondary running backs, those are great opportunities in blowouts to capitalize on those guys. But speaking of running backs, Derrick Henry, I mean, I think I've talked about this a few times when I've been handed the Tennessee Titans. And I think that, I've talked about the fact that he flourishes big time and really, really favorable matchups, we'll call it, and he struggled a little bit in matchups that have not worked out for them. You know, going up against now a top 5 rushing defense with the Jacksonville Jags. And I think I keep saying this, but nobody gives this Jaguars team credit for their defensive ability. And they're coming off a game, as everybody knows, against the Niners, right? And that was a well-rested Niners, albeit it was a well-rested Jacksonville Jags team. But I think that the sharp play there was taking the Niners, and they are a great team, and they've added more pieces to their defense. They're a great team. But people forget, I believe, when you look at Tennessee and you look at Derrick Henry's numbers, even over the past few years, and you and I have been talking about Henry for a couple years now and prop it up. The Tennessee Titans were a better team overall when Derrick Henry was playing better. So you need your team to be stronger in order for you to be a better quarterback. And look at the record 2 years ago from this Titans team. Look at the quarterback that was out there for them. Look at the weapons that they had. When you lose other weapons, when you start to slide in the standings, it affects you personally. And I'm not saying he's had a horrible year. There's definitely been some games where he's put up some numbers. But when I look at his stats and I go through his game logs here, it's not often you see a guy go from 100 yards to 25 yards, 122 yards to 43 yards, 80 yards to 20 yards. This might be the definition of inconsistent, and that is Derrick Henry here. His number, I believe, right now is listed around 57.5, 58.5. I'm going to look towards the under. I expect Jacksonville to utilize the clock quite a bit, be on offense, mix in the run game. ETN over on receiving has been a play we've looked at quite a bit here, but I'm high on the Jags coming into this game. I feel like they're going to do extremely well. And I think that when you look at some of these props, they actually point towards Derrick Henry's receiving. They're not going to really be able to give it to him if he's down in the game, and his number is super low on it. It's only 11.5 yards. He's hit this in 6 of 9 games. I feel like that's kind of one that's worth looking at. And I keep talking about this, so I have to mention it. The fact is, it's crazy, Andy. I've never seen this in my life before in the NFL. Calvin Ridley continues to go under on his receiving yards, but over on his longest reception. It's happening all the time. How is a guy cashing his longest reception, but going over his receiving yards number? I have no idea, but that is a play I'm looking at. His longest reception, it hovers around 22.5, 23.5 yards. I'm like, it's funny. Like I know a bunch of people that have him on their fantasy football team, and they'll always ask me, what do you think about Ridley this week? What do you think about Ridley this week? And I'll tell them, you're going to need one. You're going to need one big play that decides how your team does. And then we can talk about Will Levis, obviously. He's had some up and down opponents. I think that it's easy to feel like a guy's played poorly when he's played a good team and you know, oh, this guy's great when he's played a bad team. I'm going to look towards his passing attempts to the over. Like I said, I like Jacksonville this week. I feel like they're going to have a good game. They're going to respond. Tennessee's offense did not look good last week. That game was very weird, I thought. But I feel like they'll get back on track. They'll dumb things down, simplify it. And I kind of feel like you've learned about me on Prop It Up. If I like the under for the running back, I think I obviously expect lots of throws from the quarterback. So lots to unpack there. But I'll tell you what, Andy, I always feel nervous taking unders on Derrick Henry. No matter how prepared I am and no matter how much I've looked at things, the guy can break out for a huge play anytime. But this Derrick Henry and this Titans team is not the same Titans team we saw 3 years ago.
No, that Calvin Ridley is amazing. It's impossible. Like how could you possibly pull that off? So, great work on those stats, Andrew. Go grab Andrew's 5% CFL play up on an 11-2 run in those plays at WagerTalk.com. Please hit the like button, guys, and leave us a comment. Tell us your best bet. We had some great bets. Again, Anthony Marquez hit the Russell Wilson over 21.5 in the comments section on Monday. Great job. So leave us a comment. Tell us what you like. I'm going to break down the Cardinals and Texans, and unfortunately, there's just not a lot of props out on this one. We're waiting on injury news. Not really sure what's going on with Dameon Pierce at the time of recording this. So the only rushing props are on the quarterbacks. Kyler Murray's at 29.5. He looked great last week. Got to tell you, didn't look like a guy coming off of ACL surgery. So looks healthy. Looks like he's playing at 100%. The only one I can really kind of gravitate towards is Trey McBride over 54.5 receiving. I don't know if this is an obvious one because he had a breakout game last week, 8 catches, 131 yards receiving with Kyler Murray. Um, I I think maybe it may just take the books a couple weeks to catch up to him. And if this is a true breakout, like if this guy is going to be the next really good tight end in the league, especially for fantasy purposes after what happened to Mark Andrews last week, maybe we get a couple weeks of really good value on it. This is a Texans team that gives up 64 yards per game to tight ends. It looks like McBride is the real deal. Plenty of targets last week with Kyler. So my only play that I have right now, just because of lack of props available, is Trey McBride over his receiving total in that one. But I do like it. It's one of those plays that kind of jumped off the page to me, especially after seeing the chemistry he had with Kyler Murray. Buccaneers at 49ers. Props galore in this one, Andrew. I've never seen a team try and get their running back a touchdown like the situation we had last week in San Francisco with them trying to get Christian McCaffrey the touchdown late in the game. That was listen, as a better, as a props better, boy did I appreciate the hustle and the drive to try and get your player to cash a winning ticket for everybody. Really, really appreciated that one. Too many times these days we hear athletes, I don't care about your parlays. It was nice to have somebody say, no, we care about your parlays. So, Andrew, Andrew, what do you think about Buccaneers and 49ers here?
I like that. Yeah, I'm tired of these NBA players blaming their bad nights on the pressure from the parlays. All right, if you had a bad night, okay, just accept it. Um, Look, this is a game where I think that people will get really excited about. This is where you're going to see probably too many reckless same game parlays because this has been a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that is, I think they've looked a little bit better recently off a favorable schedule. Even in their loss against the Bills, they looked okay. Tight game against the Falcons, they absolutely beat down the Saints. Their schedule, I can't remember at the start of the year where it were kind of ranked as far as, strength or weakness, but their schedule has given them certain spots where they've looked a hell of a lot better than they actually are. But I talked earlier about the Chargers being 32nd in the league as far as passing yards allowed, and they're bottom of the barrel. I mean, if you're betting passing yard props against them, you shouldn't be betting the side. You should never, if you want to fade the Chargers, you shouldn't be betting the side. Similar to how I feel in this one. Brock Purdy gets no respect from people. He's a game manager. He just follows the script. He's got so many guys around him. Well, you know what? Somebody's putting the ball in those guys' hands to make the play, and his name is Brock Purdy. And I'm going to like his over completions this weekend, Andy. I'm seeing like 22 and a half, I believe 21 and a half. I think Brock Purdy has a great game. There's so many guys out there for him to throw the ball to. They're healthy now. And C-Mac is actually getting involved in the receiving game. I've never bet rushing and receiving this year. I think this one might be one where I actually will look towards his rushing plus receiving. With Christian McCaffrey, man, for him, I would just drive myself crazy if I had his rushing only and he caught a 2-yard pass and ran for 30 yards. It would drive me nuts. So I have to look towards his rushing plus receiving. And as far as this Buccaneers team go, you can talk about Rachaad White, and he's also a rushing plus receiving guy as well. But when I look at them, I got to look at Mike Evans right now. I mean, he's somebody that, despite how few receptions he might get in a game, he's getting those big routes. He's running the huge routes. And I think that that's kind of the guy that you're going to want in a game like this against San Fran. There's going to be points. They're, of course, going to be down in this game. You need some big game players. So I'll look towards that. And I think this is going to be a good game to bet. But I caution people to be careful in these games. And I'm sure you'd agree with me. I know you're preaching bankroll management all the time. This is one where just because it's a favorable matchup, just because it's has blow-up potential, pick your spots, get in and get out. And that's kind of how I feel about the Brock Purdy completions prop. I feel like he's going to, spread the ball around quite a bit, have a big first half, and we should be looking pretty good with this prop by the end of the first half. So this Buccaneers team, they've looked a lot better recently, and especially in some of their wins based on their schedule. They're obviously no game breakers, but 31st in the league in passing yards allowed. I'll take the over on Brock Purdy.
Jets and Bills, this is going to be a quick one. I'm just struggling to find anything I really like. Josh Allen to throw an interception is minus 160. You could take that on its own, he's just throwing interceptions left and right against this Jets team. I got to believe that they're gonna force him into at least one interception. I wanted to do something with Zach Wilson on his completions or attempts, but there's no lines out. He's been throwing the ball a ton, 39, 49, and 36 attempts the last 3 weeks. 23 completions against the Raiders, 33 against the Chargers, only 17 against the Giants. But I think they're throwing a lot. So maybe you could look at his yards. It's 202 and a half. And look at these totals the last 3 weeks: 263, 263, and 240. Bills defense is, they're banged up. They've lost a lot of people. I don't think they're an elite defense. Well, I know they're not an elite defense. So Zach Wilson over his passing totals somehow. But like I said, there's not any lines on the attempts and completions, so I can't give you anything there. So nothing real concrete for this one. So we'll just move on to the Seahawks at the Rams. Andrew, what do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll keep things short and simple as well. And I'm sure you probably don't mind because I've taken long on some games. I probably only give up one or two props. So how about this? I'll take the under for Cooper Kupp on receptions. Look, he's having a pretty good year. He's still averaging big numbers, but if you're going to give me 7.5 for his number, we saw 2 last week. We saw 4 against Dallas. We've seen him kind of be that guy that makes big plays, but not get the ball a shit ton. And pardon my French there, but I've talked about the fact that some teams that just aren't as good anymore, it means their players aren't going to get as big of numbers. Derrick Henry, I used him as an example. I feel like Cooper Kupp is an example as well. He's still talented. He's still a great player. He's one of the best. But if your team is not very good, then you're not going to get the ball as much. So we're seeing 7.5 for his receptions number. I'll take the under, Andy.
Love it. Last game, Vikings at the Broncos. Before we get to this one real quick, just want to remind everybody, you got a college football play up for tomorrow. We're 8-3 on these this year. Fantastic record. We're number 1 in winning percentage and ROI in college football. We only do one play a week, but we've hit 8 out of 11, and I just love the play that is up. So let's cash that one on Saturday. And Andrew, you've got a 5% play up in CFL, so tell us about that before we get out of here.
Super excited, Andy. Usually the CFL games have been on Friday or Saturdays recently. This is the Grey Cup, so it is Sunday night. It's obviously a big night here in Canada. Even if you don't usually watch the Grey Cup or CFL action, people turn this one on. So, guys, join me before the number moves. 5% CFL play. And I also do an Every Game on the Board podcast in the NHL. That's out usually Friday evening. And inside that video, I have a great coupon code I give out, only for those of you that watch. So I'm going to give out a bet on every single NHL game for Saturday. So do me a favor and check that out if you're interested.
Vikings at the Broncos. And guys, make sure you hit the like button and leave us a comment. Vikings and Broncos, I have 2 props in this one that I really like. First, team total we talked about today. Man, I love this team total in the Vikings, over 19.5. This is a Broncos defense that has gotten consistently better over the course of the season. I just think this Vikings team with Josh Dobbs is pretty good. With Dobbs at quarterback, 27 against New Orleans, that's a good defense, and 21 against Atlanta. That's a defense that does not normally give up a lot of points. And if I like the Vikings to score, I think Dobbs is going to be a part of it. He's been rushing all year, no matter what team he's been on, and they have this rushing total at 29.5. He had 8 rushes for 44 yards last week, 7 rushes for 66 the week before. It's crazy. Andrew, would you say he's top 3 rushing quarterback in the league this year? I'm trying to think of, who's better. Obviously, Lamar is going to be up there, but when you go through the list of rushing quarterbacks, this guy's got to be up there, near the top. So, what was Lamar's rushing total last night? What was it, in the 40s or 50s? Dobbs is below 30. So, yeah, I get a guy that has been consistently rushing. I'll absolutely take it. So it's been hitting all year, regardless of the team. So let's do Josh Dobbs over 29.5 rushing, and that Vikings team total over 19.5 as my best props in this one. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for Friday's edition of Prop It Up. Make sure you hit the like button, leave us a comment, tell us your best bet for Sunday. Remember, guys, do not overexpose yourself with too many units. If you're having a good week, make sure you protect those profits. If you're down a little bit, don't make a problem worse. Bankroll management is so important, especially in the sport with NFL where there's so many props out there. Just pick a couple. Let's try and make it a profitable weekend. Andrew and I will be back to break down Monday Night Football on Monday morning. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on Prop It Up.